if we choose to imagine the world as a world that is non-disabled, we will act upon that world as a world that is not disabled. And if we reframe it to the reality of the world, which is that, at least a quarter of us, if not more, because census data is really not accurate, at least a quarter of us are disabled. How could we possibly act upon that world as a world that is not disabled? And really just thinking about the collective responsibility. And I think we hear so much in our sector this idea of accessibility being a choice. And it is not a choice, right? How can we in 2025 make a choice to be okay with the fact that some people simply cannot enter our doors?
Thank you so much for joining us here at Arts Emerson for this virtual point conversation. I'm Ronnie Pinoy. I am Laguna Pueblo and Cherokee. I use the she series, and I'm looking at my paper, but hopefully I know who I am. I am the Director of Artistic Programming and the Interim Executive Director here, and so thrilled to be here in conversation. I am a pale-skinned woman with freckles and shoulder-length brown hair, wearing a kind of rust and blue floral situation top, black pants, and white shoes, like two of my fellow panelists. It's the cool look these days, apparently. We want to bring this conversation about the very real leaps and bounds and challenges in making performance truly representative and accessible to all artists and audiences. Everyone's got work to do, us included. So it is my pleasure to get us started and introduce our phenomenal group of folks who have generously said yes to speaking with us tonight. So I'm going to start with Kira Moser, who is here on our panel in a beautiful bright red top with some sparkles at the top, and also in the fabulous white aforementioned shoes. So two people to my right. So Kira is a great friend of the Office of the Arts. She's an incredible internationally renowned bassist who you can catch over at the Uncommon stage this summer. That's right on the corner of the Boston Common, corner of Tremont and Boylston. And she's also been on stages across the globe. Kira holds a master's from Berklee in jazz performance, as well as a master's in music pedagogy from University of Music and Performing Arts in Vienna, and has a great podcast called Blind, So What, which is also the name of her album. She's currently on faculty at Berklee. So Kira, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I'm going to keep on going. We are also so lucky to have Elise Patterson with us tonight. She is in the wonderful lacy, black, tan, and red, there's a hint of red in there, dress and long black tights / pants and a wrap. A beautiful black woman with a mask, 3 people over from me. So Elise is the incredible founder of Abilities Dance, Boston-based dance company that welcomes artists with and without disabilities. She currently serves on the board of Massachusetts Cultural Council. She's also served as the executive director of Ballet Rocks 2020 to 2022, a Boston-based dance education nonprofit. She's won the 2020 10 Outstanding Young Leaders Award from Greater Boston Chamber of Commerce and the 2024 Bill Allen Award for Grassroots Advocacy from Disability Policy Consortium. Her choreography has been seen at stages across Boston, New York, Chicago, and more. And because she's a literal superwoman, I also need to share that she holds a degree in biology and sailed from Massachusetts to Ireland and conducted research in the Atlantic and Caribbean oceans on coastal runoff, sponge species, and spider habitats. This panel, man. This is a great group. So thank you so much, Elise, for being here. Thank you. Yeah. Next up, we have the wonderful Corey Couture. Welcome back to Arts Emerson. Corey is and I should say Corey is in the fabulous green and white and black top, black pants situation, black boots, always classic. We were admiring the earrings that she was wearing earlier. So Corey is one of Boston's, and I should say, sorry, Corey is 4 over to my right. She's one of Boston's and Arts Emerson's, come on, beloved audio describers. You may have read about her in WGBH's recent article on the expansion of audio description. In addition to audio describing over 125 performances in the greater Boston area, 125. Corey has audio described for TV, film, and projects for the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Paramount, NASA, and Disney parks. And Corey isn't just working behind the scenes. Corey proudly identifies as a person with a disability, and her one-woman show explored how the arts buoyed her through growing up with spina bifida. Corey, thank you so much for joining us on stage.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Last and certainly not least, we have the most wonderful Nicole Hurrell here with us. Nicole is a musician, educator, arts administrator, and disability advocate whose work centers at the intersection of arts, education, and disability. She's the managing director of Open Door Arts, an organization that works to increase access, participation, and representation in arts and culture by people with disabilities. Open Door Arts leadership here in Boston has really moved the needle on what organizations do to make their initiatives more accessible. They inspire us to think about what is possible and create a call to action to make change. And also just say that I've really appreciated learning from Nicole as we both serve on the Boston Cultural Leaders Coalition. So thank you so much, Nicole, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So we're going to dive into some questions for this group, and I'll just preface this by saying that I'm so hoping that we get into a beautiful back and forth conversation. So certainly don't feel like you need to, that everyone needs to answer every question. And if something someone says inspires you, I would really, really welcome that. So just want to set that up going in. So disability representation on stage and in the audience is always very meaningful. But it's equally important to ensure that there's representation behind the scenes and at every stage of the creative process. What are your thoughts about creating access on the creative and production side of theater and performance venues? And would anyone like to kick us off?
Well, this is Corey. I'm going to, I wrote notes because I don't trust myself to remember everything, and I'm not going to talk for too long, but I think that we need more and more and more of representation, not just on stage, not just in the audience. I do audio description for theater, making shows accessible for people who are blind or visually impaired, and I'm excited to say that in the last couple of years, we've really expanded the pool of audio describers to be more diverse. Some of that is part of the work of Think Outside the Box, which has been training people who are blind or visually impaired to actually provide audio description. So I'm currently mentoring for someone who has low vision, who's going to be describing a show at the Huntington next week. So we're trying to bring in people from the population because there's, nothing about us without us is the cry of the disability rights movement. So I think that's really exciting. Also, I think that it's not about theaters, casting people who are disabled or from populations that are BIPOC or AAPI, but also trying to get more directors and designers and front of house staff, all kinds of people working on productions that so that all of those people working on the show reflect the audiences that are coming in. Yeah. I think we're going to talk more about later about the benefits of that, but I think all of that is really, really important.
No, thank you so much, Corey. Others want to jump in on this?
Sure, or you go ahead. Thank you so much for everyone who's here, also from my side, and thanks again for having me. I'm gonna jump right in and just say that my experience is obviously the experience of the music venue side, because that's mostly where I'm at. Obviously, I'm a fan of theater and dance myself, so I do visit that in from the audience perspective as well. I think your question is very interesting because it's a lot of times we talk about disability awareness in terms of we need visibility for people with disabilities, right? So we want to have people with disabilities in jobs. We want to have them on stage. We want to have representation there. And then the other side is we talk about performance. How can we help the audience to have more accessibility when they go to see a performance? So if I go in a theater, I want audio description, I want to find my seat, all of those kind of things. But something we also a lot of times forget, I'm a performer with a disability. What happens to me when I come into a venue and perform is that I always rely on the help of my bandmates who I'm performing with, because most of the times the people who are in the spaces that I perform, the people who work there, they don't have any like experience or training how to work with people with disability. So what would happen if I were to be a solo performer, right? Which it has happened before, but not too often because I'm a bass player. But I just want to also kind of call that out because, you know, a lot of times those backstage entrances are not very accessible. And a lot of times I'm arriving in an Uber possibly or a ride, not finding the back door because of course the driver doesn't know where I have to go. So there's just certain things that there's also work that has to be done. And yeah, one thing I also just want to say from the beginning is that communication is the key for everything regarding inclusion. That's just something I would like to put out there as well.
Thank you, Kara. And I really appreciate what's been offered so far about the connections between the importance of tethering visibility, from what I'm hearing, disability awareness. It's not just folks on stage. It's not just folks in the audience. That is critical. It, in a way, that is so much made more possible and more welcoming by having representation, nothing by us, without us, at every area to ensure that there's that thinking, there's that, you know, awareness for sure. So following up on that question, yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Is there a way to increase the volume of your mic?
So we are getting a real-time question from the audience about being able to raise the volume of the mic. I know I can raise my voice. Okay, great. So we'll do a little bit of both. Thank you for asking, and happy to do so. So I will say that, you know, it's been said of theater and performance that non-traditional theater spaces, such as public parks or other public spaces, are inherently more accommodating to performers with disabilities. So my question for this group is, how can traditional, like in quotes, so let's say, you know, using this as an example, how can these traditional theater organizations and institutions support performances and performers, you know, in these non-traditional spaces? Yeah.
Well, one to follow up with your first question, of that beyond just kind of having folks in stage or in the back of the house, all of which is really important, and also being able to note, you know, what different folks might need because they have that lived experience for themselves. You also need even disabled administrators as well, to be able to highlight that, you know, the disabled development director will know that certain access things will cost a certain amount and be able to fundraise accordingly, or the disabled marketing director will know that this type of font will be the most accessible, and to be able to also make sure that the accommodations are highlighted accordingly. And so I think in having all of those areas, representation is important across the board, so that the experience itself can be as inclusive as possible. So as Kara was mentioning, someone would know that there would need to be a person on the outside or wherever to move someone through a new space, or all of these other barriers that can happen. And to your most recent question, because of that, theaters and these kinds of historically elite type spaces have always been exclusionary, not just for folks that are disabled. And so there is, you can't just tackle one without tackling all of them. And so in thinking of doing all of that work, parks and whatnot, while have also been sources of segregation and what have you, have still been spaces where folks have gathered and have been able to reclaim joy or fight to have those spaces for reclaiming joy. And so if we continue to fight for that in the same way that we fought for park access and beach access as well as in theater access, we can go far.
I so appreciate you saying that, Elise. And what is one piece that I'm pulling out of what you just offered is the importance of thinking about the intersectionality of these issues. That if we're successful at disability justice, that's going to be supporting, and it's the same work and inclusion that we need to be doing for racial justice, for decolonization, for economic justice, right? It doesn't help to think about it in a silo. So thank you for that. Would others like to respond to Elisa's comment?
I have something very quickly, just a short anecdote. I don't remember exactly who it was I was talking to, but it was about a building, a venue, I think. And the owner of the venue told me, yeah, we're now accessible. We have a ramp. And I'm like, okay, great. So ramp is important, but there's a lot more to this. So.
Yeah.
And this is Nicole, and I'll just say that's so true. And I think in our work as an organization that has done research, that really works with a lot of arts and culture organizations, there is such a distinct level of awareness of what accessibility means, depending on the organization. And to Kira's point, we've heard, similar things like, oh, we have an adjustable music stand for one of our chorus members, therefore we're accessible, to the exact opposite range, which is an organization that has really done a lot of work and really understands that. And so connecting that level of understanding, at least talking about, you need to understand what budgeting looks like. You need to understand that somebody might be taking the ride and you need to tell them where they can get off and where the curb cut is. And there's so many layers and there's so much nuance that an organization cannot possibly have that level of understanding without people, without representation of people at all stages and all levels informing that work and doing a lot of their own internal work. And then also I'll just say people with disabilities should work at all levels because people with disabilities should choose whatever job they want to choose as long as they are capable to perform that job, right? And so, yes, we should have people with disabilities represented in all jobs because just like everyone else, people with disabilities should have the jobs that they want.
Right on. Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to say something about the non-traditional spaces for performance, and I was thinking about performances that happen outside. Shakespeare on the Common is a great example where it's wide open to anybody who wants to come. It's free. People are walking past and might end up seeing something happening that they otherwise would not have exposure to. And it also was crossing my mind that if you also have people on stage in performances, productions like that, who have disabilities, who represent, diverse populations, the people who happen to walk by and stick around to watch what's happening might see somebody on stage who looks like them or, has some kind of shared life experience to them. And this might lead them to think about trying to get into careers or, dive into an interest in an area that they never would have thought they could do before, that they could participate in before. And then I was also thinking about old buildings. And so if you are casting people or, employing people to work backstage on a show who have disabilities, let's say a mobility disability, and you have a very old building, which, okay, now it has a ramp somewhere around the back that you can go through to get to the actual, action. That the awareness of the fact that the way your space is laid out and constructed and how accessible it is will foster and encourage more people to come in into jobs where they might not otherwise have thought that they could participate, and that the organization may not have thought, had not thought about looking into that population to be part of their work. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%, 100%. So one a question I was going to ask is that there's a sentiment that creating access for a specific group may actually mean creating greater access for everyone. So, how do you believe this sentiment is reflected in terms of access in the arts? Like, where do you see access for one community creating opportunities or greater access for everyone?
Okay. Well, I think that it's been helpful for others that are newer to this work to kind of expand their definition of access to be these elements that are extremely helpful and useful to folks that might not always have the same resources, like childcare, for instance, being a much needed access measure for folks to be able to engage in work and to be able to engage in other elements of their lives, or things such as transit and being able to have affordable or easy transit that even if it's not necessarily mobility related, can still make an impact in how folks are literally navigating the world. And so being able to think of access beyond these kind of certain parameters that have been assigned to certain identities can continue to evolve. And in one example, like Corey's mentioning audio descriptions, I know for us it has definitely been a way to really expand our storytelling beyond movement, and that those who are beyond those who are blind and low vision, but those who might be new to dance, or those who might just not be able to see because there are like 2 rows of folks in front of them, to be able to understand what is happening in the story and to be able to follow along regardless of experience with movement or regardless of experience in general within the arts. So.
I'd love to piggyback on that and just say explicitly that for all of your abilities dance performances, if I'm not mistaken, you provide audio description that is integrated into the performance so that everybody in the audience is hearing it, and it's not just people who have chosen to put on headphones, right? That's just built into everything you do, which is amazing.
Actually, an example for that is also sometimes I watch a movie with audio description with my friends, and then my sighted friends are like, wait, oh, that's how they meant it,
Yeah, and this is Nicole. I'll say we have a gallery and where we have a lot of practices that kind of are available to everyone. Like all of the artwork is reproduced in tactile representations. We have large print guides, audio described tours, and all of that. And the number of non-disabled people that take advantage of those is amazing. And I think it's just there's something about the practice of normalizing access needs as needs, right? As like Corey and I were talking about this before we came up on stage, and we said, I need my notes. That's an access need, right? It might be an access need due to disability or not, but I need my notes, and I need to normalize the fact that these are some things that help me be in the space, take advantage of opportunities, really fully participate. I was using a sensory room at an airport recently because of how I felt in that moment, and it was very helpful. And so normalizing it, I think, as a field is a really important thing. And with that, I'll say also that we also need to remember that there are some access services or offerings that are helpful to everyone, and some that are not. ASL interpretation is not helpful to someone who doesn't sign, but it's necessary, right? And so there are many things also that have to be provided for access, full stop. And sometimes they're going to benefit a small group of people, and that's okay. And we still need to prioritize those, right?
Right on.
Excuse me, sorry. I was also going to say that although audio description, for example, is something that was developed originally for people who are blind or have low vision, it can be helpful to lots of other populations. For example, people who have attention, ADHD, or people who are on the autism spectrum. It can help them to figure out, to learn about what it means when somebody responds in a certain way on stage in a play. Let's say, two performers are interacting and there's facial expressions or body language that are happening, which somebody on the spectrum might not interpret naturally. And so listening to the audio description might help them to sort of decode some of the social cues that are happening on stage. For someone with attention issues, it can help you figure out where to focus your attention at any given moment when there's a lot of stuff happening. Great for people who are, new language learners who are new to learning English. It can just help to clarify what's happening when things are going fast. And even for all of us at one time or another who can't remember the name of the character that is on stage right now, so it can really help you kind of keep up with things. Anyway, the whole point being there's universal design aspects to all of this, just like curb cuts help all of us who have rolling suitcases or baby carriages or who are using crutches temporarily because of an injury or something. Hooray for universal design, basically.
I also just want to say that it has a huge educational aspect to it as well. For example, what you were talking about with the tactile, like maps or something in a museum or in a arts gallery. I remember that I have two younger brothers and one of them is sighted. And he would also always feel the tactile maps because he liked to also have that experience and to experience all of these things on another level.
Well, so much of what everyone is offering in response to this really seems to have this undercurrent to me of care. It is having such an expansive approach of how can we really being inviting everyone to be able to participate fully. And not everyone is, as Nicole offered, going to be able to personally utilize every single one, but there is so many kind of wonderfully unintended consequences, it sounds like, too, of moving forward. And I as someone who is very much in a learning space in this area and has benefited from relationships from many people in this room who have given me wonderful feedback, I was very moved by a statement that was given to me at one point of, the disability community is a community that any of us can join at any time. And it's really this, providing multiple, providing pathways for everyone to be able to have what they need to thrive is, it benefits all of us so much, of course. So, Corey, I want to throw you a specific question. So, in the WGBH article that you were quoted in, you said that regarding the growth of audio description, that, quote, there's more coordination and support from a big picture. So to me, this is heartening to what we are broadly, I'm curious how organizations can work together to support this big picture of increased accessibility.
Sure. I was thinking about this last night and trying to figure out how to talk about it. So one thing that I have been doing over the past couple of years, aside from just writing and delivering audio description to audiences, I've also sort of taken on a role of coordination when I go to new theaters. And I'm trying to, I'm trying to get back to the question here. All right, I have to look at my notes. No. Thank you.
You're very
Nicole.
welcome to look at your notes.
I wrote this down because I didn't trust myself to remember it.
Well, I can vamp while you read.
Yeah,
so
go for it.
something
Thank
about
you.
audio description that has been really moving to me as an Indigenous person that was part of, it's something I saw very much on the work that we presented, We Are the Land, was having Indigenous audio describers. And the passion, the specificity, and the, oh my God, for the Native folks in the audience who, I mean, having a Wampanoag story on stage, and much more than that, having it described in culturally specific and rich and, you know, nothing biased without us way. It just was on multiple levels creating such a inclusive experience. And I was really moved to learn about that development. And I know that, you know, on our staff, we're really excited about continuing that and looking at our accessibility offerings through that, you know, cultural specificity as well. Yeah. Back to you.
Well, I think all of that just shows a level of care, as you were saying before, but also just respect for you know what's happening on the stage, and trying to make sure that you're bringing in people from that community to provide description or other kinds of access services. What I was starting to say before was that I've been coordinating audio description with different theaters and trying to help build some standards about how we approach the work, and also some education materials to help theaters understand what they need in order to be able to do this kind of work. And also, I've been working with the Perkins School for the Blind and the Bay State Council of the Blind to pull together a list of all of the productions that offer. This is specifically about audio description, but it can apply to, you know, any access service at all. The tricky part about pulling together all those materials is trying to have them available to all of the different companies that might need it, organizations that might need the information. And with this list of shows, we have for a bunch of years now been kind of sharing that information by pushing it out from through like Perkins and Bay State Council of the Blind. And one of the things that has been missing is an opportunity for people to go to someplace, you know, a resource, to find that information for themselves when they want it or need it. And Arts Boston, which provides an online arts calendar, is a terrific resource. And this year, they have just created a whole new feature on their website where you can now go and from the very front page of the calendar, you can click on something at the very top on a button that says accessibility, and then you can select, check a box that says, I want to learn about all of the productions that have audio description coming up in whatever time frame, and then it will just pull all of those up for you. Same thing with ASL interpretation and with relaxed performances for people who are on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, that kind of thing. So that is just an incredible resource and a clear expression of this attempt to try to pull information from lots of different places into one location so that people can go and get it when they need it.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And I'm really grateful to have that resource lifted up and shared in this group so that we know we can go there. So Kira, as a Berkeley graduate and current professor, and Elise, knowing that Abilities Dance provides a wide variety of dance and movement classes, I'm curious that in terms of professional training programs, where are we seeing the most growth of both representation and accessibility measures? And how can current faculty or those teaching better position themselves to welcome students with different disabilities? So whichever one of you would love to take a shot at that.
Yeah. As far as if you're thinking of like higher ed training options for disabled dancers,
or education, like educational. Think of the educational frame more broadly. Teaching in general.
But that is an important point to note that there
Oh,
really
yeah, please.
isn't. There is one just starting in the UK as a graduate program, but that's just starting as a PhD program. But outside of that, we don't have offerings. And it is needed. Widely, it is still, if the folks that are running the auditions are not trained, then how can they even get into the school? If they do somehow get into the school, but maybe either become disabled during the school or it's just becoming more of a need, how does that student stay in the school? And so all of these things have to be addressed, especially in conservatory dance settings. If we're ever to think of dance beyond a specific narrow frame of what is professional dance and what it can be. Yeah.
All right. So, where's there most of the growth happening? So, in terms of the growth, what I'm seeing is representation, even though we're not even close to, we're still on the beginning of the road with that, but I see stuff happening there, which is good because that means if we keep going, eventually we'll be on a good path. Where I do see some challenges still is for sure the first of all on a teacher's side the representation, because if we have more educators with disability, we will also have more role models for people with disabilities and for people without disabilities. And where I definitely see most of the issues is the communication aspect, which I kind of said a little bit in the beginning. But I feel like a lot of things are not being talked about, no matter if that's on the programs for the educator side or if it's on the teacher side in the classroom. You know, I know it's different from case to case. There are people who have disabilities who don't necessarily love to talk about it, and they don't have to. But there's no one who will be mad if you try to talk about it, because it's necessary. And that's what we're doing here today. So also shout out to Art Emerson for this. This is really, really important. Things like this, but just in general, in your daily life, trying to be more open and communicative, no matter if you're an educator or a student. That's for me like the biggest thing, because inclusion is everyone and not just the people who work towards inclusion are the people who have disabilities. We are all in this, every single human being in this entire world. So that's just for me the biggest thing. I mean, related to inclusion in general, but also in education. And one thing that I also want to say that I've seen interesting reaction towards is, as a person with a disability, before you even are able to have education, you have to educate. So every time I go into a new place where I am being taught by someone, I have to teach them first, right? And so we're all here, thank you for that, to work towards a world in which we possibly don't have to do it anymore, or we don't have to do as much of it, and where it's just part of the normal kind of process of receiving the education that you want and need.
No, thank you so much, Kira. And, I'm sure I'll say this at the end of the panel as well, but it's a real act of generosity to hear firsthand about the experiences of navigating places that are inaccessible, positive experiences, the work that still needs to be done. It's, to your point, having to educate every whenever you're out in the world, it's a I wanted to just like name the generosity in sharing that with this group of people, so thank you for that. So I want to actually, before I keep going, because I was just really absorbing that and taking it in, anyone else want to build on what Kira was just offering?
I think just kind of building maybe on some of that and some of what Corey was saying earlier, just and thinking about the collective responsibility. You were asking earlier, what do organizations, what does the sector need to do to do better, right? I was thinking of something that someone who I really respect in this work, Sarah Hendren, who is an architect, a designer, a professor also, who wrote this amazing book called What Can a Body Do? And she said something, and I'm going to brutally paraphrase, which was something along the lines of reframing the world so that we can act upon it differently. And it really stayed with me because it's this idea that if we as individuals, but also as organizations, as especially organizations hold so much power, right? We are like the stewards of culture. We're choosing who gets access to culture, which is a huge responsibility, right? And a really scary responsibility. If we choose to imagine the world as a world that is non-disabled, we will act upon that world as a world that is not disabled. And if we reframe it to the reality of the world, which is that, at least a quarter of us, if not more, because census data is really not accurate, at least a quarter of us are disabled. Wow. How could we possibly act upon that world as a world that is not disabled? And really just thinking about the collective responsibility. And I think we hear so much in our sector this idea of accessibility being a choice. And it is not a choice, right? How can we in 2025 make a choice to be okay with the fact that some people simply cannot enter our doors, right? So I mean, and so many great resources have already been named. Abilities Dance is amazing things going on. We're talking about Vox, who's in the room, who is doing incredible training and programs. Mass Cultural Council, amazing work around accessibility, right? There are resources. Open Door Arts is putting resources out there too. There are resources. It's a matter of saying, we as organizations have to decide what world we are deciding to act upon, and this world is real. Accessibility is real. The people with disabilities are right here, right now, right? And so how do we keep ignoring that is unfathomable.
No, I really appreciate you saying that, Nicole, because again, Painting Arts Emerson is the organization in process, very much learning and doing this. In working with Flawboard on their piece, a lot of the content of it is digging into the fact of the performance of, wanting to provide wonderful services to folks, wanting to be kind of perfect about it, wanting to never say the wrong thing and be, just so, and even being fearful about what does it mean if I mess up, and what does that say about me? And I in every conversation I've been a part of, it's what I keep hearing is you just gotta get ready to completely fall on your face and try and throw and listen and learn and do better. I'm probably making some folks in the audience chuckle who have emailed me and been like, nope, that wasn't it. And I'm like, okay, great. Let me try again. So it's that's such a huge component, is just doing it and living in the vulnerability as an organization to take it on, so appreciate you offering that. So these last couple questions I have, we have we need to open up to Q&A. I totally just lied. We're lying. I'm lying. We're going to go to Q&A. So we have two wonderful mic runners who are gonna. There we are! Yay! And I see a question just here, so we'll start here. Do it.
Hi, thank you. So I'm going to turn this whole thing on its head a little bit. So I'm hard of hearing and I have ADHD. So the challenge with hard of hearing people is that I have to watch all TV shows with closed captioning. I don't go to musicals. Music, if I hear music and work together, forget it. I don't hear anything. I don't even bother. I go see Hamilton. I heard about 1/5 of it, the whole thing. One time we went to an opera, they had the words up and the thing. Like, wow, I can actually see it and understand it. So why is that? That's like never anywhere. You don't see that at all. And it's a shame, because I would love to go to musical, I'd love to be able to see that stuff. All my friends enjoy it, and I go, sorry, doesn't work for me. So it really is difficult because that's flipping it on the side of the visual of the audio description. That's great, but closed captioning in TV is fine, all that kind of stuff, but it's not. And so it works for me, but there's not in the movies. It's not on. So that whole side is missing from, and I don't know what can be done, but it's a challenge.
Ronnie, can
May
I
I? Oh.
jump in on that? There are theaters all over Boston who are not just offering, ASL interpretation and audio description, but also open captioning. Wheelock Family Theater is a place that has open captioning for every performance of every production they do. Go there. Their stuff is great. A lot of, what's that?
We're hearing a shout out for Coolidge Corner,
yes,
and
theater.
I'll add more in a moment. But go
Terrific.
ahead.
And a lot of theaters offer open captions for 1 or 2 performances. I would like to see everybody doing something more like what Wheelock and Coolidge Corner do, which is to have it all the time. Moonbox Productions is another Boston area theater, and they now offer open captions for every performance of every production. The way that they deliver it is through an iPad kind of thing, or tablet that you are given when you go in, and you can just turn it on. A lot of movie theaters have all of these things available. You just have to ask. And, there are ways of getting captions for movies as well. So it's out there. It's just a matter of knowing who to ask and where it's possible to find it.
Yeah, thank you, Corey. And just to, I'd be remiss if I didn't say we're not at the point of opening open caption for every single performance, but we do have it for most all of our productions. And in the Bright Family screening room where we offer film, it's if you have questions, I'm going to put you on the spot, Susan. Susan can raise her hand for those of us in this room who heads up our film division at Arts Emerson, and there are a number of films that we that have that captioning as well. So it's, to your point, though, it's not ubiquitous, and I know that when we do international work, it's a place that folks tend to be okay with captions. But for work that is in English, it is also, I'll name, interesting, and I'm curious if others here have had this experience in collaborating with artists who are on their own learning journey about the need for accessibility and their concerns about their artistic work and how it is presented. So that's something we've been working on for sure. I want to make sure that anyone else here wants to answer that. Please, Elise.
Yeah, I can also mention too that we also have captioning. We tend to have it so that it can be on your own personal device and a live captioner in the room as well, to be able to caption along with the ASL interpreter for those who might utilize different services for different needs and having different identities at every show. I think a part of it that has been a challenge that we don't have is that because I'm able to produce my own work, I don't have the same limitations of someone saying, well, we can only provide this for one night and the other service for the other night, and you're one is deaf and one is blind, y'all just got to choose a day kind of thing. We don't have that limitation. The other side of it means that we also don't have any institutional support at all, and so we're having to do it as we go. But that doesn't mean that it can't be done. It just means that we have to do what we do in the community best and figure out how to spread our resources so that everyone can have what they need to survive and thrive.
Thank you, Elise.
And this is Nicole. Just a super quick plug for something Corey said earlier, which is the Arts Boston All Access Calendar. If you are looking for musicals and captioning, you can filter it and it'll give you a list and you can give it a time period. So highly, highly recommend for folks to be able to find the information they want to go to the Arts Boston calendar.
Thank you. And I see a hand from Leslie. And sorry, I do know some people in the room, so sorry for...
I'm just thinking where to start. I've been very fortunate. I've been seeing live theater for over 50 years, over 40 of it here. And it was during that period, as an adult, probably about 20 years ago, that I started losing my hearing. Before that, I had been a special ed teacher, and I had spent my life advocating for others. I now spend my life advocating for me, which is why I interrupted Ronnie twice, because we need to hear, and thank you very much. Advocate for yourselves is what I tell everyone. I'm connected to a number of different theaters in Boston. I have been to them for so many years that when I can't hear, they know it. and they've made changes, and that's how we met. So I very, very much support each one of us advocating for ourselves, because we are their audience, and they do need to hear from us, and they do need to learn from us. And I will tell you that at least 3 theaters that I've been talking to for years have made changes, including here. The change that I don't think is recognized, but is also very much needed, is the actual play itself, the actual theater presentation. For example, a number of years ago, I saw a play. I was in the audience. The dining room table was over in this corner where the bar is, and there were actors who were speaking to people sitting at the table with their back to the audience. That's very difficult for a number of us. I saw another play where the stage was set up with a disc in the round, and I'm very deliberately not saying which theater each of these happened. But the actors were walking around a disc that was revolving. So it's sometimes they were facing us, and it's sometimes they weren't. So I think we need to dig deeper. We need to get to the playwrights. We need to get to the stage set designers. We need to get to the producers, to the directors.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Leslie, so much. I would love to get to my my friend here from Vox.
Christopher Robinson here. I am purpled out, and I'm sitting on the floor, and I'm quite comfortable, chilling. The headline of this question is capacity. All right, so I'm going to lead with that word. My background is that I'm an American Sign Language interpreter. I do what my colleagues here also do in the theater performing arts. So the anchoring capacity question is this to the panel of artists and arts administrators. What is your perspective about the balance of accessibility services and the investment into accessibility services, juxtaposed to the investment, as Elise, as you also mentioned, of the artists with disabilities working hard to fundraise, to generate funds for their own work, to be on the stage and the theaters and the venues. Our funding entities may throw money toward the service. And I'm not trying to put myself out of a job, but really I live indirectly through the experiences of the disability community on both sides of the curtain. So I'm interested to hear, especially as artists, what do you want to say now to us as public, as the investors, about the juxtaposition of those two things where it's a capacity issue?
Thank you so much. Who might like to take that?
I'll say something. I feel like I keep jumping in too much, but The question about artists, trying to find ways of funding our own work. Sadly, I think, most of us are not in this kind of work because we're trying to get rich, right? But we just want to be able to survive in our lives. And if you are an artist or, a service provider with a disability, life is already challenging. It can be exhausting just to live with the challenges of a disability. And so the idea that you have to go out and find money in order to be able to continue doing the work that you're doing is very challenging. One thing I very much appreciate about Think Outside the Box is that they are working with people like me and other artists who provide services to figure out ways of doing that, of being able to get keep doing the work because you have the funding to do it. In fact, I was encouraged by Vox to apply for a Mass Cultural Council Creative Individuals grant this year, which I would never have done if I hadn't had a little push. And so I got one of those grants there, and I haven't been looking for them, honestly. And so just having somebody sort of say, hey, it's not really that hard to apply. I'm not trying to say that this is easy, but just it wasn't part of my mindset to go looking for that kind of help. It would be nice if I didn't have to, but it's good to know that there are resources out there and that there are organizations kind of encouraging us to find each other. We people who need the funding and the organizations who have it to provide. So
one thing I would like to say, actually two things. First is I just want to say about funding and about programs. I've been doing a lot of applications, received some things in the last few years. And it's interesting because it always says we encourage, people with disabilities to apply. But then a lot of times the application itself is not accessible.
oh, amen.
So they're asking me to send a picture. They're asking me to, I don't know, send a budget. Yeah, I can, do all of that, but maybe it's not going to be the format that they want. And there's no place to reach out and say, hey, I need help with the application, which it actually struck me today because I saw a program that was and there was actually an accessibility feature where you could reach out, which was, I think, the first time in my life I saw something like that for a grant. So I just want to encourage that side of accessibility. The second thing I want to say about advocating. So it relates to actually both kind of like a lot of the things that were said in the Q&A. I will advocate for myself, and I will advocate for others with 200 million%. I'm all in. I'm in the war. I'm on the front. I'm down to do it. But I also know that a lot of people, they don't want to do it, and they still have a disability, and they can't change it. So I want to also say that you guys are seeing the people who are fighting, who are strong, who are out there, but those who are not, probably the majority, they're not being seen. So I just want to make clear that there is a huge importance of what's happening here, and advocating also is something that we don't only have to do for ourselves, but everybody can do for each other.
Right on. Thank you, Kira. I want to, as much as I would absolutely love to invite more questions, I know we're coming up on our time. I want to give an opportunity for everyone on the panel, and including you, Kira, although that was a real drop the mic moment. Anything that you haven't had a chance to say in this conversation that is sitting on your heart, that is important for this room to hear, for the folks that are watching this recording to be hearing about this really important conversation we're having.
I would say Hi, Elise speaking. On the kind of capacity and the balance of abilities, there is so much grant writing because we have to fund everything from the front of house folks to the support to the all of the roles. And so it can be a challenge balancing that and the different administrative things that we all have to do in addition to the artistic elements, in addition to making sure everyone can feel accommodated and figuring out, for me as a new journey, how to balance my own access needs within that because kind of competing access needs is a real thing, and there isn't a lot of guidance around how to manage disabled employees as a disabled manager. Because we're not expected to be disabled managers or directors or what have you. And so thinking about how to better show up for everyone while also showing up for myself so that we can model better interdependence and community care is a very real thing. And then the other is just noting that there are so many, as we've listed today, and even more that aren't listed. There's so much disabled artistry happening in the city. You don't have to go to Edinburgh to see it. It is here, it is happening. You just have to find and investigate for yourself what is occurring and be as intentional as you would with other equity learnings in other ways, and knowing that the journey is continuing.
Amazing. Thank you, Elise. Any other final words? Just want to give you a chance.
I would love to just say I'm excited to have people who are here as audience members talking about your experiences, and to encourage you yourselves, if you have needs that are not being met, please speak to the theaters, to the organizations where you're trying to access their services. Let them know what you need. Because it has so much more impact when it's coming from audience members than it does when it comes from, those of us who are service providers or performers. So speak up, encourage other people to speak up. If you hear people sort of complaining that something isn't there, then just say, hey, nobody will know unless you tell them. Just talking amongst ourselves isn't enough. So use your voices to advocate to get more services when you don't see them. Yeah.
If there's something that we hear over and over and over in our work, it's the amount of fatigue that the disability community experiences when going to a restaurant, getting on the T, showing up at any theater and not knowing what to expect and how much that changes. So again, kind of back to what Corey was saying is, as a non-disabled person, what can be your role in whatever role you occupy? If you work for an organization, if you're just a person in the street going to a restaurant, what can you contribute to alleviate some of that fatigue for our disabled friends and colleagues? Yeah.
Amazing.
May I say one short thing?
Absolutely.
All right. So I would like to say, because that's one thing I haven't been able to say yet, and I'm speaking for myself, but I think a lot of people in this room can also relate to what I'm saying. I'm here, and anyone who needs, my advice, consultation, I am all up for it. And I just wanted to also shout out to anyone who's listening. So please, reach out to me, and if I can't or don't want to, I will say it, but I always usually want to. And I also just want to say again that every single person is in this. We're all in this together. And for me, 3 keywords of kind of the conversation we've had kind of turn out being communicate, advocate, and appreciate.
Yeah, communicate, advocate, and appreciate. This is a just rock star panel here that I'm just, sitting here and feeling tremendously lucky to hear from today, and to be. This is an incredible community to be a part of, looking as someone in the looking to do better category, and just so grateful for all of the generosity and the knowledge that's being shared, and the call to action here as well.
Thank you.